the course of a family's life, 90% of married women will control its wealth. Women are an extremely important part of our economy, of our investing, of purchasing. They have a lot of power. They make decisions. And if they don't, they need to be involved in making those decisions. We've got a great guest, Susan Cohrs. Susan and Bill Cohrs have been investors with me for many years. And about 9 months ago, Bill passed away suddenly of a heart attack. It is a very sad story, and Susan is now in a position where she can actually share that story and have it as a educational opportunity for other women out there. You don't think about your spouse dying. Some of them don't even think about the investments they're in, what they're doing financially, or how to prepare or anything like that. Susan Cohrs has been through that. And like I said, she's now at a position where she can actually talk about it and explain what happened, what her story is, and what she's doing. So this is a very important episode. It's very important because I want women out there to know what to do, how to look for things, what things can happen. Very unfortunate, very sad things. But women need to be involved in those decisions. They need to know what's happening in their lives, in their investment life. There needs to be a plan just in case there is something horrific like this that happens. So take a listen. This is Susan Cohrs on with Darwin German and Adventures in Real Estate. And thank you for joining us. Wheatland Garden too. And that was a massive.
It was. And you had pictures and
okay.
In the presentation that you made to LU case study, I had just enough personal experience in what's the word now? It's not restoration, but in rehabbing residential and adding on and that kind of thing. So I had just enough knowledge to be dangerous, but I recognized what you were doing. And to have taken on a project like that and made it workable, of course you got rid of it, so good. But I was just shocked that everybody stayed with that. Remember the foundation was cracked in the middle of the building?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean it was a wonder it wasn't condemned.
Yeah, we've had some rough properties. We've had some real rough properties we've done.
Surely about the worst. Anyway.
Yeah. Craziness.
I was so impressed by that.
Was that the first one you invested in?
We did not invest in it. I was just watching you.
Oh, okay.
Because you were kind of a maverick in the group, and in watching you. I mean, you weren't a mom and pop coming up telling their story as a case history. You were a professional real estate person. And I was very curious about, why are you with LU? You don't need LU.
Let's talk about, okay, I'm getting the chills thinking about it. Because I got a phone call. Was it your stepson or son-in-law?
It was my son.
Was
it Luke?
Luke, yes.
That's my son, yes.
That's your son, Luke. Yes. So Luke called me. Serious freaking chills. I was at North Park Mall.
Yeah.
And I had to sit down and think about it. Damn, this is actually, this is going to suck. I'm already tearing up.
Yeah.
So I get a call from your son, and he tells me what happened. So you tell me, what happened?
Well, Luke and I called Luke to come pick me up from my friend's house where Bill was supposed to have picked me up that morning. I had just spent the weekend with one of my horse friends. And when he was late, I just assumed that he was out with a friend working on projects. They do a lot of fix-it-up projects for friends, Yeah. And he was late, and I really wasn't disturbed about it. I just thought, darn, Bill,
what are you doing?
He doesn't answer his cell phone, and he didn't about half the time. So I was slightly annoyed, but once I realized that I called Luke at work. He's just about lunchtime. He said, sure, no problem. So he ran up and got me. And as we were coming home, it was, we were within 2 blocks of the house. And Luke said, just out of the blue, we were just having our usual conversation, chit chat. He said, Mom, I've got a bad feeling about this. And honestly, as we turned on this horseshoe street that we live on, we turned right there, and in front of my eyes flashed, you're the third widow on this street, and that is the truth.
Oh my God.
It didn't faze me. I just, things flash in my
Yeah,
imagination all the time.
Exactly.
I paid no attention to it. As Luke pulled up in front of the house, all of a sudden he was hustling. He jumped out of the car, he came over and opened my door, and he got to the front door with his key, and when he opened the front door, there was Bill lying on the floor in the foyer. My brain did what brains do when the shock is too much. Completely was I in denial. I was annoyed that Bill was lying down on the foyer floor, and my son immediately started wailing. And then I turned to him. I was annoyed with him for being so upset because we had to get Bill up. I just wanted him to help me get Bill up. And I said, hit him in the chest. He's got to breathe, And Luke said instantaneously that he knew that Bill was gone. And I just didn't. I just thought, well, this is unacceptable. and that's the truth.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh.
No,
I mean
no,
just
I
the
understand.
reaction that people
It was
have.
the reaction that people have. And Luke immediately walked me out to his car and put me in the the next thing was, apparently, I kind of fell down. And when I looked up, I was looking at a policewoman. So Luke somehow called 911, and the police were there. And then there was about a 2 to 3 hour period where legal things had to be done. And that's when Luke put me in the car. And then looking back on it is very surreal. Friends started showing up. So 2 or 3 friends came, and then a couple came. In fact, the couple that I had been spending the weekend with came, and we were all in shock. Bill Darwin, 6'7", played basketball for Michigan State, was an athlete all of his life. He was 69 when he died, but until he was 60, he was still very active. The last few years, he'd been sedentary because of the nature of his profession. He was a lawyer, very paper intense, that sort of thing. So weight had crept up on him. I had no idea until the last thing. Am I going on too long?
No.
Okay.
I was just looking. It's
Okay.
okay. Right, our live studio audience.
Yes. The last thing that the coroner, I think, said as he was authorizing all this paperwork was he described Bill's age, and he said his weight was 300 pounds. I had no idea his weight was back to 300.
But he's 6'7".
Yes,
exactly. He didn't look.
He did not look obese.
He did not look heavy. He didn't look obese.
Maybe
Maybe a little bit heavy, but I mean, at 6'7".
Yeah, right.
I mean, 300 pounds is on 6'7" frame is not that bad.
So the rest was a terrible dream on one hand, and then on the other hand, the people who came to I hate calling it a funeral, but the night of what I call the reception, when all of these friends and family came to the funeral home, I just looked at the crowd, and part of me was saying, we have got such a great group here to entertain. We have company. We have people we have to take care of. But I was on some kind of autopilot where you put your one foot in front of the other. You dress, you stand up, you smile, shake hands, and say thank you for coming.
Yeah.
That's what you do, and that's what I did.
And that's when you put on your strong face.
That was it. Yes.
And when everybody's gone, that's when it really hits, doesn't it?
Oh, it was much later. I stayed in a very funny place for weeks, if not 3 months. It was a very difficult mental process. The shock, of course, the loss of my husband, 40 years, that's one compartment. But shock. I'm one of those people, I don't like surprise birthday parties. I don't like surprises.
Yeah.
I like to be ready, that's all. But that shock did something to me neurologically. It kind of knocked me out. I felt like I'd been hit in the head hard, So I was really a mess for a good 3 months. And that's where several of my wonderful friends came together and started walking me through, literally holding my hand for that week, that awful week of the funeral. But it was really tough. It was really tough.
Well, it is a position many women find themselves in.
True. Surprise.
Right. And my mom was the same way. My dad died at 57, cancer.
Wow.
And my mom was in the same position.
Yes.
And I remember watching everything she went through and the same type of thing. And my mom had a little button that she wore. She kept on and she put it on the refrigerator. Also, it said no whining.
Yeah.
So you gotta get on and do that.
You've got to carry on. You've got to.
And even though this is a podcast on real estate, which is the reason you and Bill are investors with us.
Absolutely.
In many deals. And Bill was always a great guy, always had a big smile on his face, always happy. And we always had
Love the meetings.
Love the meetings.
Love
He
the meetings.
loved people.
Yes, it's true.
And what's funny is we had a lot of the same shirts. So every time he'd show up, he'd show up some Hawaiian shirt. I have that same shirt.
That's right.
But just such a great guy and just a shock.
He was.
And so I feel very, very bad. But there's also a learning side of it, which is what I wanted to talk to you about.
Yes.
For the benefit of whoever happens to be listening, because
Absolutely.
A lot of women end up in that position. And Bill, of course, was an attorney and a basketball player and all-around great guy. But he pretty much took care of most of the finances, right?
He did. Oh, he took care of all the finances. He really did. I was one of those old-fashioned wives who I can't be out of money because I still have checks in my checkbook.
Yep.
Literally one of those. And back when I was working, I had my own business and my own money and all that. But after we both retired, when I wanted to get into the finances, he would just say, just leave me alone. And I finally stopped fighting it. So that last 4 or 5 years, I just sat back like a baby and did whatever I wanted to, spent whatever I wanted. As Bill said, but honey, you were never extravagant, which I appreciated him saying. But
I'm sure he appreciated it as a wife too.
He did. He absolutely did. So, but no, I stopped paying attention that last 5 years or so. I loved the real estate, but I loved the social side. The meetings were great. They're interesting. I loved your presentation. You don't have to be a math person to understand. You make a great presentation. And then your graphics are so good. I love graphs. And anyway, I felt like I was keeping up sufficiently,
Yeah, just knowing what's going on.
Generally, yeah. What's up and what's down. And fortunately, everything was up for us. We did very well with Darwin, German. And so we were big fans. It was great.
Well, good. Well, let's talk about real estate then, because as far as picking up, well, we'll go back, but you then had to pick up the pieces, and you had financial advisors and kids and friends that were helping through all that. But you had to.
I don't mind telling you about that because it is important, especially recognizing what you're saying, which I'm now recognizing is true. I'm a member of a very large club of widows.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Took a long time to be able to say that. I just hate that designation. but your status in this country, in this society, changes as a widow. And women need to know that.
Really? How so?
Absolutely.
I had never thought about that.
Yes,
So
yes.
How does that change?
Immediately, kind of the benefit of the doubt is rescinded because you're on your own. You know, you don't have the persona of being an active real estate investor. Because I was the second on the contract, I was the spouse. You know, I didn't initiate the purchase. I didn't do the analysis.
Right.
I relied on my husband, and he was very good at it. You know, he picked.
Oh, yeah.
I know that story you're thinking about, but anyway, but I just didn't do any of that. So as my status changed, took a while to recognize it. But again, this is where real estate has been such a blessing, because I'm surrounded with people who are friendly and who aren't setting me aside as, you know, well, that was Bill Cohrs' wife, you know,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. And, you know, this COVID thing has just interrupted our lives so terribly. And on one hand, I'm so thankful that Bill is not enduring this. This would have been hard for him, really. But in the meantime, though, I wanted to tell you that the preparations that Bill made have made my life very comfortable. We had a trust, we had wills, we hadn't looked at them in years. So I didn't even know that we had a trust. I had a vague memory of going to the lawyer's office and signing papers.
Right.
So it was a great relief to find out that that the house was in the trust and that sort of thing. Then,
avoid probate,
yes,
not all the hassles
exactly.
and everything else. And he was a lawyer. He
and I
knew
had
all the
access.
problem.
Access. My signature was on everything. So,
Yeah.
it saved a great deal of headache that I know women who did not have that benefit, and it's a terrible, terrible thing to have happen. So it's something everybody should have. It's not expensive to have a will or a trust.
No.
You don't have to be wealthy.
Everybody needs to have a will and a trust.
Yes,
A
exactly.
will, if you have any assets, trust.
Yes.
And avoid probate.
Yes.
And just have it go smooth, and
Yes.
there's no big headaches and things like that.
There's still headaches. You know, you still have to deal with
Yes.
day-to-day. Well, you have to go through a funeral. That's a terrible thing. But
No.
that's where close friends took me through that. I slept walked through the whole thing. I look back on it as though I'm watching a movie. I was not there. Really.
Yeah. Well, obviously. I mean, how long were you guys married?
40 years.
40 years.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then finding it's not Bill and Susan, now it's just Susan.
Yes.
It's a whole different
Darn.
identity.
Every time I have to take that trash out, I'm telling you. You know, I mutter every time I have to lug all that stuff out. And the other thing is just, you know, I took so much for granted. Bill did everything. He was an old-fashioned Midwestern gentleman.
Yes.
He opened the door for me. He parked where he would drop me off at the door. He would go park. He did so much. He ruined me. I'm spoiled. So, you know, I'll live out the rest of my life alone. I know I'll never remarry, good heavens. But that's because Bill could not be replaced.
He was your other half. Yeah,
He
I
was my
understand that.
rock.
Well,
Absolutely.
what kind of, well, back up a step. Do you know when you started investing in real estate? Were you in Bill?
2012.
2012.
Right.
Okay, and how did you go about doing that?
This was during a certain administration where the stock market kind of went to sleep for an extended period. And so after Bill had retired, our portfolio was very strong. I mean, it was good. We rolled out of Exxon's benefit plan, rolled into investment.
Because he was a lawyer for Exxon, and
Yes,
that's where his
yes.
benefits were.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
And it was very comfortable. And so we set a number that we expected to live on, and we did. And as I was watching that, because visiting with the financial person, they use graphs too, you know. And I would watch that graph and I'd think, you know, I don't like the direction of this thing. It's flat. we're counting on
Gotta have growth, yeah.
5%. You got to have growth. And there was very little growth at that time. And of course, we weren't doing anything hot and fancy, or we weren't taking many chances.
All stocks, bonds, things like that.
Yeah, pretty conservative. But we definitely expected growth.
Right.
So as the years ticked off, I started making noise like, Bill, we need, we're
That graph is flat.
Yeah, we're
We
going to
need to
be
be going up.
alive for another 20 years. We're in our 60s. We're going to live into our 80s. Or Bill, I expected to live into his 90s, as his parents and grandparents had.
Yeah.
And I said, Dad, I don't think that money looks like it's going to make it to the end with us. Let's look into something else. But he was comfortable. He was very comfortable. He said, no, it'll work out. Stock market always comes back, blah, blah, blah. In the meantime, I started listening to radio commercials about a real estate investment company here in Dallas, out of Houston, but here in Dallas. And the more I listened to it, I thought, well, I know something about real estate. This makes sense. I like this. I want to go find out about this. But it was kicking and screaming that I took my know-it-all husband. But I finally got him to go, and that's where
Good
we
for
met
you.
you.
Yeah.
And the presentations there were very interesting. And I'd say within a couple of months, we signed up, paid the price and jumped in.
Right.
And it was still probably another 6 months before we found investments that we were willing to go with. And the rest is history. And I would love to talk about when we met you.
Go for it.
Okay.
You can talk about anything you want.
One of the case studies was Darwin German making a presentation and to this large body of people. They averaged about 300 people per case study. And I mentioned that I've been an interior decorator for 20 years and had just enough knowledge to be a little bit dangerous. But I understood when I saw the concept of rehabilitating a distressed property, the great risk involved. But Darwin made a presentation with photos, and I think you had some graphs as well. And you took a property that should have been condemned and pulled that thing back together in spite of everything, setbacks like crazy.
Yep.
Between plumbing, all the underground stuff, the foundation was shot, the parking lot was horrible. I just could not imagine how you could turn that around, present it to the public and make it the best product for the best price, so to speak, and get occupancy. I don't believe there was occupancy when you bought it.
There was. It was
But it was
occupied. We had to
sorry.
turn most of them over. But
It
yes.
was a sorry thing. But when you showed us the final finished product, I was sitting on the second row and I applauded. And, yay, this is a great, kind of a David and Goliath story. I just loved it. So, but you didn't hear that. And I asked you later, I said, didn't you hear me applauding? You said you didn't applaud loud enough. So, anyway, so that's when I started.
Next time you can.
Yes, but I started paying attention to you right then because I knew you were a real estate professional. And usually the case studies are individuals, either couples or individuals who come in, take a property, slug through it, and do well. But I was interested in your background. I loved your story. You grew up with your parents, your brother, and the two of you started working on rehabbing property and maintenance and all that as young guys. And of course, that's rolled on. And then you've got a great story now. So anyway, it just caught my eye. So from that point forward, as it turned out, we did all of our investments with you.
Oh, really? Okay,
Yes.
good.
Yeah. We have, I think we have 3 other properties, but our best properties are with Darwin German, hands down, really.
That is awesome. I thank you for that.
Thank you.
What should people? I don't remember the exact number. 60% of investment decisions are made by women, actually, and I think 40%. Your club, is probably 40% single or widowed women end up in charge of their own portfolio.
Right.
And so they need to know what's going on.
Right.
What tips can you give to women that can do to have things in place beforehand, before
Right.
they find themselves, both as an investor, like you've seen those flat graphs and
Right.
saying, hey, we need to do something to
Right.
diversify and get some into real estate,
Exactly. Right.
and what should they know or have access to or be part of to prepare
Yes.
for something as tragic as
Right.
this,
Right.
but to be able to put them in a position where they are safe and they're taken care
Yes, in a position of power instead of being so vulnerable.
of. Exactly.
It's essential to remain involved in your husband's finances. It's absolutely essential.
Mhm.
And that's a communication thing, you know. But that's a point on which you have to raise the volume and really insist on being actively involved in purchases and investments, and just learn about investments. It's easier and more interesting to learn about investments these days because, you know, everybody's learned you have to offer more than a lecture. A lecture won't do. You have to have a presentation, a PowerPoint, the graphics, and they tell the story. Then, as far as real estate is concerned, you do have to get the training. You have to go to the whatever classes are available. Hopefully this COVID thing will pass and we'll go back to live classes, which are so much more vibrant
No, of course,
and
yeah.
exciting and interesting and hands-on. And then you have to talk to other people. You know, in our society generally, you know, these middle-class conservative people, you kind of shy away from your finances. That's not true in real estate. In real estate, you know, we share our financial
Exactly,
situation.
yeah.
Very important. So in a couple, whether you're in real estate or not, you have to get comfortable in talking about finances just starting with your house, for example. How is your house financed? Is it time to refinance? Of course, these days, anybody knows you
Rates
refi. Are you renting? Are you buying? Are you buying rental houses for income? If you're lucky, you're in multifamily. That's the only place to be, as far as I'm concerned. But that's just my opinion. But getting the education is vitally important. And like we said, having a trust and a will is something everybody should have. And the general population seems to think that that's something that wealthy people have. It is not. It's $200 or $300. You can get a will. And a trust is maybe the same. And it's absolutely essential to do that. As far as anticipating that your spouse, this happens to men as well.
Right.
But it's hard to, you know, if your spouse is sick mentally, I mean, if he's dealing with Alzheimer's or cancer or these awful diseases that take people's lives, it gives you time to process what you don't want to. But if you're a mentally healthy person, you've got to process end of life. And I think medical people kind of help you through that, you know. But this sudden death thing, I had no idea it was so common. Did you know it was that an arrhythmia, that a common side effect is sudden death? I did not know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. And that is a terrible thing. That should be headline news. If a person has an irregular heartbeat, and our physician said that it was controllable with medication, and it is many times, not always.
Right.
And that is a terrible way to lose.
Yeah, so somebody, one of my best friends, his dad died of a heart attack, same way. They went out golfing that day, came home, and his dad went in the back and died.
Yeah.
I mean, just so sudden like that. And my dad died just within about a short period of time after that, but my dad had cancer.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you knew it was coming.
It's still hard.
And it is still hard, but I mean, at least there was time to prepare
Right.
and get some things in order and know that it's coming. Just an out of the blue.
Yeah.
And that, just like you said, when you walked in, it was like, this is surreal. Get up, Bill. What are you
Yes,
doing?
exactly.
You know, and
Yeah, as
Yeah,
crazy as that sounds, it's true.
It is, because
Yeah.
I mean the brain is not
Yeah.
processing that. You
No.
know, this doesn't make sense. This
Yes.
is a strong, healthy
Yes.
man.
He always told me, of course, I'm 5 years older than my husband. So, and his parents lived to their mid to late 90s. And they all had some little heart problem. My father-in-law had a pacemaker. My mom had an open heart surgery for a little, blocked arteries, and lived to be 96. And if the topic of death ever came up, it was always what kind of a funeral I wanted. It never occurred to me to ever think about Bill having a funeral. Never occurred to me.
Yeah.
He always, so when the topic came up, he would dismiss it by saying, I've got the genes.
I've got the genes.
Yeah, and I believed him, So that
Another
was,
part of protecting you.
yes.
Yeah.
And the great unanswered question, did Bill know how serious his condition was? I believe that he was in denial because it was his way. He felt good. He felt
Well,
good.
that and he's an optimist.
Yes.
Which
yes.
is also unusual for a lawyer, maybe. No,
Oh, well.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No, but he was an optimist, but he took care of the finances, and it's not something that you talk about too much.
Right.
People don't talk about will.
Right.
They don't talk about death. They don't
Right.
talk about
That's right.
preparing.
No.
And
We didn't, anyway.
and thankfully he had everything prepared.
Yes.
But there's a lot of people that don't have anything prepared.
Right.
My mom didn't have a clue about
Gosh.
anything.
Yeah. Were you boys old enough to be able to help her?
Yeah, and I mean, I was the executor of the estate,
Yeah.
and in charge of the trust and things
Yeah.
like that. So we had things set up properly, also.
Yeah. Right.
But she was not in a mental capacity to handle any of that anyway,
Right.
or
Right.
have the acumen to really do it.
Right.
So getting prepared for that, and then on the financial side, yeah, you had your stocks, bonds, and investments. So you need to know what's going on with your investments.
Right.
Talk about those things.
Mhm. And possible alternatives.
Yeah. Yeah, real estate was your idea.
Real
it sounds
estate
like.
was it. Absolutely.
That's right.
Yeah.
That was your bailiwick because
Yeah.
you're a
Yeah.
interior designer.
I always made sure that everybody knew that. When we talked about this, it was one of my few things that I could say, we're here because it was my idea.
Yeah.
And Bill finally just said, okay, yeah, let her carry on.
Let her carry on. Yeah, but I mean, yeah, there's a. Obviously, I don't know what goes through a woman's mind on that. A married woman, as far as you don't want to be just the little wife that this
Right.
is Bill's idea. No, you want to be dang sure. Hey, this
You definitely
is my
want to
idea. I'm
contribute.
involved.
Right.
You want to contribute. You don't want to be just the wife on the
right.
sidelines.
No.
You wanna be
That
involved.
was my contribution. And, we struck gold on that. So very, very grateful for that.
Very good. And you're continuing to invest in real estate then?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So
we're
ours
here
are
to
doing
stay.
good for you?
Very, very well, especially considering everything that's happened this last year.
Yeah.
To have an economy take a beating as it has, and so many areas of the economy have been so terribly damaged. But real estate has come through amazingly well. It's been very stable. And the way you have financed all of the deals, your holdback is sufficient to have carried us through that maybe 3-month period where the shock of people losing jobs, because most of our properties are very middle class.
Workforce,
Yeah.
Workforce housing.
And it hit that segment of society very hard. So you've handled it so well, Darwin, and I really salute you for that. I really do.
Thank you.
And I think the tenants in the properties that we're invested in must feel the same way.
And we're even looking at ways, as a matter of fact, we just had a meeting this morning on figuring out ways to help those people,
Right.
Especially the ones that are really trying.
Exactly.
And if they're in a hard position, we're not
Right.
trying to be some greedy landlord or
Sure.
slumlord or anything. We take good care of the properties,
Right.
provide good quality housing. And
Yes.
people that are in need and trying,
Right.
then we want to help those
Right.
people.
Yes.
Because it is a people business. This
Very
is,
much so.
I mean, you didn't just provide money. You
Right.
provided a lot of relationship
Yes.
as far as advice on that, and we get to know you, and all of our investors get to know them real well.
Yes.
So that, I mean, just like Luke calling me when that happened,
Yes.
hey, want to make sure everything's okay.
I don't even think I knew that.
Yeah,
I'll have to ask him how he knew to call you. Except he had heard so much. He had been to a couple of meetings with us.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, a lot of preparation and things like that, and we're ultra conservative, I think, on underwriting and making sure that we're prepared. I mean,
Right.
it
And it
doesn't
really
make
paid off.
the yields look as sexy
Right. Yeah.
because we go in there with conservative underwriting
Sure.
and enough in reserves to be able to head off any problems.
You know, mature investors recognize that as far as having a super hot return. That's not really feasible. It's not what you look for a long-term investment. You look for steadiness and depth and
Yeah.
having the planning for having the
Absolutely.
funds to carry through a low period is essential. Made the
but
difference.
So many people they get stuck on the, hey, I want the sexy investment,
Yeah.
the one that, hey,
That's right,
yeah,
the
in
hot-
3 months we doubled our
That's
money.
right,
And
yeah,
things,
right.
No, you know what?
Yeah.
You want to do that, go to Vegas.
Yeah.
You want to have a nice, solid, secure investment,
Yeah,
then you can talk to
definitely.
us and
Yeah.
make sure it's taken care of, backed by solid real estate and things like that.
Good old real estate.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Well, is there anything you want to add to any other women out there that you want to add to the equation?
Well, I don't think I can add anything to what I've already said, but I do want to emphasize that insisting, marriages are little corporations. And that's really what it is. If you have any assets at all, the spouse should be a full partner in what's going on there. And, it's so easy to get lazy and sit back and just think it can never happen to me, because
Yeah.
that was me. It never occurred to me that would happen. So, I hope someone hears this. If one person hears this and turns up the volume in their relationship and says, look, I need to know what's going on, and I need to know that should the worst happen, what are my steps? What's my ABCs? What's the first thing I do? I didn't have a clue. Also, I had no passwords and no pins, so there was nothing easy about it.
Right. No, I bet.
Yeah, so sharing those passwords and pins on financial matters is so important. It just makes it so much easier should you ever have to get
Yeah,
in
because
there.
you don't want to leave your spouse in a position that, first off, they're in shock,
Right?
they are disturbed, they're hurt, and then
A lot of
adding
confusion.
insult to injury
Yeah.
by not having access to funds
Right.
or know what the investment is or
Right.
anything like that,
Yep.
and having access to those funds.
Yep.
That's all real important. And I'm going to speak from a male's point of view on this.
Right.
Because my wife is like that. She wants to know everything that's going on. She wants to be on all the paperwork.
Right.
She wants to do all that.
Right.
Now, from my point of view, it's a real pain in the butt sometimes,
Yeah.
because then I got to track her down for
That's
a
right.
signature. Then I
That's
got to
right.
explain everything else, and so it is.
I understand.
It is difficult, but
It's easy to look over.
it's easy to look.
Yeah.
When you have hey, I still have money left. There's
Right.
checks left.
Exactly.
And it's really easy, especially when you have a man that really wants to take care of you.
Right. True.
And that's how I am also. But my wife's like, no, I want to know what's going on.
Right. Good for her.
You're not going to do that. I want to know what's happening, what we're
Right.
doing, where our money's going, and all that. And it aggravates the heck out of
Yeah.
me.
I'm glad you're saying that, because I think that's most couples.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, because I'm out doing this stuff, just like
Right.
Bill was handling. Bill had stuff he took care of,
Sure.
and you had stuff you took
Yep.
care of. But you need to know where that is.
You do. You need to
And-
know. You need to know how to access it should the worst happen. You
Exactly.
just have to. Yeah, it gums up the works when you have to start all over, proving again and again and again who you are. Proving it's a process that continues. You do it for months.
Even if everything is laid out smooth, it
Yeah.
is still a pain in the butt.
It is.
I mean, and
And,
going through all that, because you don't know how to go through probate, or you
Right.
don't know how to go through this, and because you'll ask, insurance proceeds. Well, now we need the death certificate. Well, how do we get the death certificate?
Oh, yeah.
And then you go through and you get one of those. Well, now you need 12 of them because
Exactly.
they have to go to
That's
all
right.
and you need all whatever. I'm making up a
That-
number. I think I asked for 12
Yeah.
when my mom died,
Yeah.
so that we could have, because there's lots of, they all need certified
That's
copies.
right.
and they
Certified
need-
copies. That's right.
And things you don't know about, you don't think about, you don't want to think
you don't.
about.
You don't. That's right.
But the one thing that happened though is coming from, again, talking about the real estate side of it,
Right.
is those checks still came to you guys.
Right.
I don't even remember, did they come in a trust name or did they come in your names personally?
They now come to my name personally,
Okay.
but after I jumped through all the hoops,
Yeah,
to
which we
prove.
needed, death certificate or whatever else.
Yes.
I mean, I don't
Yep.
think we were all that particular. We know the situation and,
yes.
and all we had to do was switch that over. But the
It's,
checks would
it's
still
legal. Yeah, it's just legalities. So all of that's done.
come. Yeah.
The dashboard, or what do you call that? What do you call the thing?
IMS?
Where you see all of your
Yep,
investments.
that's on.
This is a huge asset to an investor. You can get the nitty gritty on I just call it the dashboard.
Yeah.
Because you go to your properties, you can see exactly when you started, you can see all of the moving parts. And that software is brilliant. I really appreciate that. It's great.
Yeah, and just to talk about that a second, that's IMS. And our investors have a portal. They go onto their dashboard
Right.
and they can see every single property, how much they invested in each
Right.
one, how much return they've gotten back,
Yes. And the dates.
and the dates.
Right.
And they can click on a link and get all of the financials and all of the
That's right.
reporting. You can go
Pages and
do
pages
everything.
and
It's
pages.
all about transparency on
Right.
this side.
Right.
And so yeah, you could jump on there and say, what properties do I have? You can go
Right.
right there on the portal and
Yeah.
see it.
Yeah.
But then you need the password and the login and
It's
password.
okay. Now it's my password.
Now it's
You
all
know,
you.
yeah.
That's right.
So it's,
Gotten all
got
that straight.
over that hurdle.
And I'm going to go back, and you mentioned earlier, you said, I know the story you're thinking about. I'm going to go ahead and tell that story.
Go
real
ahead.
quick. Because Bill, very detail oriented, we had changed software, and one of the checks we sent him was 1 penny different than all the other checks. So we actually got a call from him for a 1 cent difference.
That's right.
That's how close some investors look at this stuff.
Yes. Yes.
And so, I had to
Yeah.
make fun of him, and I
Yeah.
went ahead and gave him a penny at the next meeting just
yes.
to, make sure he stayed even.
Yes.
But all it was a rounding thing.
I
for
had
one
I
time.
had a little talk with him after that. I said, "Look what you've made yourself subject to."
Yeah, well, he did.
but-
He wasn't mean or anything like
No,
that.
no.
He was.
He loved the details. He
Yeah.
loved poring over the numbers each month. I don't.
Yeah.
And the difference is knowing you, trusting you, knowing our local community, having all of our investments are in North Dallas.
Yeah.
Very convenient for me. I could spread out through your properties all over the world, actually, if you count Hawaii. But I'm really not, I like having my investments nearby.
Yep. You can drive
And-
by him, see him, know it's
Yeah.
actually there.
Yeah. And that's an option. Yeah. So,
That is awesome. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for coming on in. I'm glad we got to talk and
Yep.
give it some time after all your initial shock.
Right.
And it's still sad. I know you're sad every day, and even now, I mean, shoot, my dad died 20 years ago or so.
really.
And I still see things that have his
Yeah.
writing on it,
Yes.
and I
It
can't
becomes
get rid
very
of them.
dear. That's right.
It is. I file business file folders that he had
Yeah.
written on, and I
Right.
can't get rid of them.
Yeah, that's right. I do the
because
same
it's
thing.
His writing. So yeah,
Yeah.
I understand. Nowhere near the depth and the shock and things like that, but I'm
Yeah.
sure somebody out there listening, this will have an impact on, which
I
is why I
hope
wanted
so.
you to share it.
I hope so.
And because there's a lot of people that are gonna be in your
Yeah.
very, very large, unfortunate club.
Yeah.
But,
True.
But thank you for sharing. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you, Darwin.
All right, thanks.
Bye.
Bye.